Welcome to Stress Less Obsessed, the podcast. My name is Sophie Deans, and I'm here to bring you all things on self-care, self-development, as well as lifestyle tips and hacks to keep your life as simple and stress-free as possible. So let's make a start and join me on a journey of living a life with less stress. Welcome to today's episode, Stress Lessers. So lovely to have you here as always. And today's episode is all about money worries and how to manage them. And the reason I wanted to do this episode is because I did a poll recently on Instagram and I asked what are the sorts of stressors or things that are causing you stress at the moment. And money was a big one, a big concern. And look, I'm not surprised at all in today's economy where things are so expensive and inflation has increased and gotten so high, and yet pay rises and income hasn't. Rentals increase, everything's increased, but our pays haven't seemed to increase. So I'm really not surprised that money is a big issue for quite a few of you. And of course, I'm not a financial advisor, but I did want to do an episode just to give you some tools or some ideas on how you can try to manage any concerns you have that might be adding on and giving you more stress than you really need to be. I know what it's like when you have something hanging over your head and it's on your mind. And yeah, so that's what we're going to talk about today. Again, I just want to reiterate that this isn't professional financial advice. It's not tailored towards you. And if you are in real trouble and really, really struggling to make ends meet and pay your bills, don't just bury your head in the sand and until you're in too deep and you start borrowing money from, those loan sharks. You need to face it head on and speak to your bill companies and speak to wherever you're trying to make ends meet and you're really experiencing difficulty. You need to speak to those different companies and see what they can do, because often there are things they can do for you. And there are some other things like getting financial advice as well to help you. But these tips I'm going to give you are my 5 tips for managing any worries that you have. And, if you're in the position where you've got that feeling where you feel like you've just been paid and then you look at your account and you're like, where has it all gone? Then this episode is for you. If you're the sort of person that gets paid, doesn't remember buying anything, then this is what I'm talking about. So this brings me to my first tip for managing money concerns, and that is creating a budget. This is my number one, all favorite. I actually don't keep one at the moment, but I did for a very, very long time. And a lot of my friends would say to me, oh, you're really good with money. And I think it's not that I was any better with money per se than anyone else. It's that I was very aware at where my money was going. Okay, so I'm just going to delve into this a bit further for you and how you can do this. But budgeting just gives you a really clear picture of what you've got coming in and then what you've got going out, so your income and your expenses. And it helps you to identify where it is going, so that if and when you want to or you need to cut back, you can easily do that much more easily than if you just say, oh, okay, I'm going to reduce how much I spend on lunches this month. I can almost guarantee you it won't happen. Okay, or you'll just save a little bit. It's almost like having a SMART goal with a budget. You can really be very specific, you can measure it, and it can be really achievable if you've planned ahead. So, how do we do this? My recommendation, based on what I've done before, is by using Google Drive, which is free, and the spreadsheet option. There is a template in there for budgets. I think it's called the monthly budget tracker. Go in there, have a look, and you can fully edit it. So you put in what you earn. You can put in even where that income comes from. If you have like multiple sources, you might have interest income in, and then you can add labels. That also for your expenses. So for example, what I used to do is I actually list everything down to the detail of like my electric bill, and then put that under the category of bills. And then I might also put Netflix under Netflix, and that under the category of bills, and my water and my phone bill. So that's when I look, I don't know, just say, oh, I'm spending $500 a month on bills, and I'll be able to see that, and then I'll be able to look at what exactly was that. And so if I needed to make some cuts, I could see all of these bills and go, I don't really need Netflix. If I took that off, that would reduce my bills, which are really high, down to this much. Some other labels I used to have would be eating out or dining out. Another one would be groceries. I would also have one for random or ad hoc to allow myself additional spend if I needed it. I don't know, like a dentist appointment, or something that you wouldn't need to buy every month, but you just so happen to need to this month. So that's an example of what I used to do. I would also put savings in there and try, even if it is only $10 a month. And you might do yours weekly as well. So you can do this weekly too. You just update it. Just make sure you start saving something. It's more about the habit first than how much you're putting in. Another example would be coffees. So if you're someone that goes out and buys your coffee every single day, it will be really interesting for you to see how much you spend across a whole month. And then you might go, wow, that's actually quite a lot. Okay, it doesn't sound like a lot day to day, but when it all adds up, and then you might think, seeing that number in front of you, I think is great awareness. And that's what makes the change. It makes you think, I don't have to do that. You might want to, and a lot of people do want to, but it could be anything. And just seeing that number and going, wow, that's more than I thought it would be. I might start having my coffees at home instead, and put in that, $80, whatever it is, into a savings account instead. So this is why budgeting is my absolute favorite. I know it's boring. It's like mundane. It's monotonous. It's, I used to go through my bank statement and do it regularly. And then obviously as you go through month by month, you'll see a lot of the same things popping up, and you don't have to add that much. But it is so useful, and I guarantee if you start doing this today for the next 6 months, you'll be making, off your own back, you'll be making some huge changes that will really, really help your money and your financial well-being. Okay, number 2, my second tip is to build an emergency fund. Now, I read some really shocking statistics here recently. I actually can't remember what the number was, but it might have been something crazy, like 1% of Australians have less than $1,000 in their savings account. Let me just see if I can find that. Okay, I'm glad I looked that up. I was being quite dramatic. Um, Actually, 45%, so almost half of Australians currently have less than $1,000 in savings. I just know I felt very scared and very shocked when I heard that, because literally what happens if you lose your job? Like, that's really, really, really scary. And if you're having money worries now, just imagine how you'd feel then, and the pressure to get another job and probably take a job that you don't enjoy just to make ends meet, which is going to affect your mental health and well-being, and potentially your physical well-being. Like, it's just a spiral. So having an emergency fund really provides you with a financial cushion for unexpected expenses and helps to reduce stress and the worry of financial uncertainty. I would say aim to save at least 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses. Start small, okay? You don't have to have it all in there next week if you don't have one, or if you only have a very small savings account at the moment. Like I say, it's more about the habit to start with. And generally, you'll feel quite good. Even, that $10, that $50, $100, it all starts adding up. And that kind of gives you the motivation to keep putting more in. So just start small, set aside a fixed amount from each paycheck, and leave it in a different savings account. One that you have trouble, I guess, transferring out. You can't just transfer it across. I like to keep my savings account with a completely different bank to my cash account, so that I can't get it instantly. So that's a bonus. It means that you really have to think about transferring across. It's effort, and it's also good just to see it in there. Another one you might want to get, but depends on your situation, of course, is maybe a savings account where you only get the interest if you keep it in there. That is a very good incentive. But obviously, if you really need the money, then you're going to lose out on interest as well. So you need to assess what's right for you in your current situation. But I highly recommend having this emergency fund. Personally, I had one. I think I say I had one. I still have one right now, but I started an emergency fund a couple of years ago, a few years back, and it had, I think, about 5 months' money in there. I built that up, and it took a while, but there came a point when I needed to use that, and I was really burning out at work. And although it was classed as my emergency fund, I actually had it written called emergency fund. I didn't want to use this. I really didn't want to use this because it really was the last resort. And when I was burning myself out at work and didn't want to be there anymore, I was looking for other jobs for like 3 months. I couldn't find anything, and it just got to the point where I just thought, this isn't worth my mental health. And this is what my money was for. Like, I exhausted all other options. I need to use this money. This is what it's there for. And so I did. So I quit the job that I was working in, and I took some time off for my mental health and well-being. And so if you don't have an emergency fund, and I don't want to add to your stress by saying this, but if you were put in a situation that maybe you were fired from your job, or you needed the money for healthcare, or like me, maybe you've got family over in another country and you need to make an emergency visit, you're just adding additional stress to an already stressful situation. And you might think, oh, we could use that money to go on holiday and enjoy that now, but actually having instant gratification is going to really cause havoc in the meantime if you don't have something set up for you in times of emergencies. So I'd really seriously think about that, because you'll avoid a lot of stress down the line. Point number 3 is reduce unnecessary spending. I know, you don't want to hear this. Nobody wants to hear this. Reduce your spending. How is this going to make me less stressed? By reducing spending and living a boring life. Okay, I'm not talking about staying in all the time and not doing anything. It's about unnecessary spending, the non-essentials, these expenses that we don't really need. And this is why having your budget is so important, because you can easily look at that and go, okay, I seem to be spending a lot on Uber Eats. Uber Eats, for example, that was one for me a while back. Why am I spending so much? And then you look, how much am I spending at groceries? Okay, well, maybe I can spend slightly more on groceries, cut out some of the Uber Eats. And so you're still eating. You're probably eating more healthily as well. But you're just cutting out the things that aren't necessary. It could be your Netflix, or it could be, why have I got like 3 different subscriptions? I only need one. I only use one. So having your budgeting template or spreadsheet will help you identify and free up money that can be used to pay off debt, boost your savings, and just ultimately feel like you're making progress to being more financially secure. Because I think that's where a lot of people's worries lie. Not feeling financially secure, feeling like you don't have a buffer, and living paycheck to paycheck. So it could involve dining out less, sure, but it could be just finding cheaper alternatives. If you see your grocery shop is super high, maybe you just need to change what products you're using. Maybe go to a different grocery store. Now, my next point, number 4, I already mentioned this in the beginning, but don't wait till the last minute for this one. Seek professional advice. Okay, so I know I said if you're really struggling, go seek advice, reach out to your bill companies, but don't wait until you're struggling to seek advice. In fact, if you're not struggling today with your finances, go seek financial advice, because financial advisors are there to provide you with strategies and solutions to help you manage your money more effectively. Okay, so they're not just there to address concerns. Obviously, they do that too. But if you aren't in a position of worry, then this is a good time to use some money that you have to pay for advice, so that you can look to the future and really just plan where you're going. I think especially if you're feeling a bit lost at, how to grow your wealth, you don't know what to do. If your only strategy is savings, then I personally would recommend a financial advisor if you're not really financially minded. And do this before you get these money worries. So then you've got a plan already in place. You already had someone who's been trained, who knows where to put your money to get you where you want to be. So that's my advice. How do you do it? Well, look for certified financial planners and advisors. A lot of them do offer initial consultations for free or at a reduced cost. Always ask them if they get paid commission for anything that they are recommending to you. That's a big one. It's different all across the world. Some places advisors aren't allowed to get commissions anymore. They have to tell you things like that. But there are other ways that you can find out advice as well, by utilizing community resources. There are like non-profit financial counseling services if you're struggling. So yeah, there are lots of ways, but seeking professional advice, like, they're certified. They are professionals. They're there to help you. Number 5, my last point for today, is educate yourself about personal finance. And some of you are probably rolling your eyes like, oh my God, this is so boring. I'm personally someone that does really like finance. I'm really interested in growing my wealth, investing, what I can do. I love learning about it. That's not to say I'm an expert, because I'm definitely not, but I certainly don't mind a book or two on finance, because knowledge really is power. And I personally feel that I like to have some idea of what I'm doing. I don't like to put all my trust in someone else, especially with my money. So just knowing and understanding some personal finance concepts can empower you to make some better financial decisions. And it can also help reduce any anxiety about money. And so I read, this would have been a few years back now, and I was really looking to invest, and I had no idea. And I was like eye rolling, like, oh my God, this is so boring. Like, I was thinking this is more a male orientated space. And then I found 2 really great books aimed at women for finance and empowering them and teaching them to take control of their finances and their financial futures. And I highly recommend them. I will put them in the show notes below. But yeah, I love them so much. I actually gave them to my friend, both of these books, because she's also someone that wants to look after her money and, yeah, wants to know a bit more on how to do that without, I guess, reading a really boring book that's like all these words that you just don't understand. This book, both of these books were by female financial planner, Canna Campbell. And yeah, if you want to grab them or take a look, one was called the $1,000 Project. And it's basically about like loads of tips and advice to help you save and create $1,000. And it's great. It's awesome. And it makes it really achievable. The other book by Canna, that's Canna, just so you know. The other book by Canna was called Mindful Money. And I think reading this book helped me set up my first investment shares account. And doing that, and I think she's got some like links to YouTube videos, and she makes it so less boring than I thought it would be, and interesting, and really accessible for women, actually. So that's one way to educate yourself, by reading books. You can also attend workshops, by having a little search online, see what's around your area, and also online workshops. I recommend following like reputable personal finance blogs and podcasts. So I'm going to put some more of my favorites in the show notes, but you may have heard of some of them. There is Girls That Invest, She's on the Money, the Australian Finance Podcast, and This Is Money. So I love these ones. I told you I find it really interesting. If you think it sounds boring, I would suggest giving one a go. I don't want to pick one. I would say if you're female, give Girls That Invest and She's on the Money a go. If you find money quite dull to talk about, give them a shot. They have lots of stories, and they have people come on the show that have like been in heaps and heaps of debt and then managed to like save $100,000. Like, really interesting stories. So give them a try. They provide great tips. And also, when you're looking for resources, make sure they're focusing on topics like saving, investing, debt management, and budgeting, because I feel like they're the foundations for having like a strong financial ground. And then you can start looking at more, I say risky, more complicated things. So they're just a few things to help you take action. I feel like the biggest step you can take to getting over any money worries or concerns you have is actually taking a step and taking action. So whatever your financial situation is, in my personal experience, doing nothing actually creates overwhelm, which means that you then do nothing, when it creates more overwhelm, and it's like this big cycle of freeze response. So taking this first step and feeling like you're doing something to tackle whatever you're worried about, taking action, you'll see some sort of progress, which will motivate you to keep taking action, to keep saving, to keep paying off a bit of debt on here and there. I think the worst thing you can do is bury your head in the sand and create this overwhelming anxiety that nothing's changing, nothing's shifting, and just a future of uncertainty. I've kind of felt that in the past, and taking action over procrastination is the best thing you can do. So by implementing strategies, you can help to take control of your financial situation a bit more, reduce stress, and build a more secure future. And I'd love to hear if there's anything that you think has been useful for you in the past or is useful for you right now. Leave a comment below if there's something you can think of that I haven't mentioned that will benefit someone else. And you can leave that wherever you're listening to the podcast, but you can also leave a comment in the Calm Community group, which is our Facebook group to discuss everything that happens on the show. So I'll leave the link down in the show notes for you. And you can also follow on Instagram as well for more tips. If you haven't already, don't forget to grab my freebie, which is an ebook on hacking your happiness hormones. And it's all about bringing more positivity into your life. And it's called the Everyday Bliss Guide. Also included in the show notes below. So thank you for today. That's everything. And I hope this helps you with some direction to getting some steps and taking some steps to help with any money concerns that you're having. All right, I'll catch you on the next episode. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Stress Less Obsessed. And thanks for listening. Until next time, breathe and stress less.